Good morning. It's 7:30-ish, very-ish today. Welcome to Coffee, Buses and Politics. We're joined today by David Boden, and who's from Stagecoach, and Simon Dew from Dews, but they're both here today representing the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Bus Alliance. You've probably seen, though, in the news that there's been some big bus news this week, which is a band from Somerset, where I'm from, are such big fans of a particular bus service that they've renamed themselves 376 after a bus service from Glastonbury, and actually got 376 tattoos. We're not quite that keen on buses, on coffee, buses and politics, but I would probably end up with a big B tattoo. Anyway, David and Simon, let's go over to you. Would you just like to introduce yourselves, and then we'll go on to what the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Bus Alliance is.
Well, hi, thank you for having us on the show. I'm David Boden. I'm the chairman of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Bus Alliance.
Hello, I'm Simon Dew, managing director of Dews Coaches and vice chairman of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Bus Alliance.
So I suppose the first question is, what is the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Bus Alliance? Is this actually you coming together to fight off the invading hordes of buses from Lincolnshire, to stop those Vikings coming? No, being serious, what is the Bus Alliance?
Well, what it is, David, as bus operators in Cambridgeshire, we really do want to provide the best possible service we can for the people of Cambridgeshire. So while still competing, and we compete very vigorously, we wanted to come together so that on key strategic issues which move buses forward in the county, we could come to agreement and move forward. And we're proud to have in the CP Bus Alliance all the big bus operators in Cambridgeshire, Dews Coaches, Vectari, Delaney Bus, A to B Travel, basically Dews Coaches, everybody, even FAC Community Transport. So really, it's just an opportunity for us to come together and on key strategic issues, make sure we deliver for the people of Cambridgeshire.
I agree with everything that David there, every sentiment there that David has brought forward. But certainly there was a very much a desire for everybody to be represented, so we all get a voice.
Yeah. And what are the key strategic issues that you're looking at?
I think the biggest one of all is reliability and punctuality. And sorry, forgive me, I forgot my other two members, with apologies to them, Stevenson's and Whippet. The big key issues are reliability and congestion, because reliability, a bus and a driver for every single vehicle and journey that we say we will, is on us. And we've all worked very, very hard to ensure that we're consistently providing every bit of that. We, for example, deliver 99% of our scheduled mileage consistently. However, congestion, that is the real challenger. That's the real big thing hurting buses in Cambridgeshire. To give one example of that, we did some modelling recently about how long it takes to get from Regent Street down in College to Addenbrooke's bus station. And in September of 2023, it actually took 9.2 minutes. In September of 2024, it took 29 minutes in the morning peak. That's what's hurting buses. So we're campaigning hard on that. But also, we're proud that working at speed, we've collectively delivered a £1 fare for the under 25s, the Mayor's Tiger Fare. We made that happen. We've also tried new bus services. Also reinvested in bus services where people travel, which has led to passenger growth of over 40%. So really, it's just about sort of making sure that the key issues that people want are brought forward. We even have a model ready for delivery on how to deliver more rural services.
So can I just ask a quick question, just for clarity? That's all. You said about Cambridge. You said about congestion. Is that congestion issue primarily, I'm certainly not exclusively, focused on Cambridge City, or does it exist elsewhere?
That's a really good question, Martin. We do have struggles in Peterborough with roadworks in particular, on one of the big sort of major bypass into Peterborough. But Cambridge at the moment is the real killer. I mean, Simon, Huntingdon, what's Huntingdon like in the morning?
In all fairness, we have less issues in the rural area, but we still do get hit by them. Clearly, in actual fact, there's a main road closed right outside our door right now, which is going to be closed for the next for another 6 weeks. So yeah, clearly we do have issues, but there are times in St Ives and Huntingdon that we do get hit. Not as bad, to be fair, as the guys do in Cambridge and Peterborough, but of course we have these issues. And I think some of the problem is we mainly have is that it seems to be done at the drop of a hat, and we don't get notification over it at all. We'll frequently have a driver ring in and say the road's closed. Okay, and we don't know, so therefore we're having to divert, and it's causing delays. And just generally, people clearly are not particularly happy about these scenarios because it's going to put time on their journey. It's not what they expect.
And what we'd say, Martin, is it also impacts on rurals, and that obviously buses coming out of Cambridge and Peterborough going into rural areas, and it really does hurt us. We get very upset when we have to cancel services purely because they're stuck in the city because somebody's decided to dig up a road. Now, the Cambridgeshire officers, they work very hard to do their best under what rules they have available within the law to try and control it. But the simple challenge is the utility companies and others, yes, there has to be development in the city. Yes, we need water and power, but they do not even vaguely consider the impact they are having on bus services. We recently asked a very simple thing. In exchange for getting the street works permit, you should be able to put on your application what bus services you're going to affect, what have you actually done to consider the impact you're going to have on those bus services, how we coordinate with others, and apparently that's an unreasonable ask upon those companies to do that. And most recently, I live in Teversham Muldrift. A utility company had a permit for Coldham's Lane, decided to accidentally put traffic control on Teversham Muldrift as well, which impacts hard on R1s, the busiest bus service in Cambridge. Streetworks team went in there, did the necessary, but because under the law the fine is so insignificant, they just paid the fine and said, well, these things happen. So really, it's about these utility companies finally giving a proverbial about the impact they are having on buses, which provide the lifeblood to Cambridgeshire.
I mean, that wouldn't solve the problem, but it would certainly help it make it easier, and it'd help you to give advance notice to
definitely, definitely.
I think that we need to be mindful, though, that it's not just about just putting more resource into the service, which effectively is what we've been asked to do. There's a hold up, and the general sort of answer is we'll put another bus on then. And quite what is that actually resolving? All we're actually doing is clogging up the streets even more, frankly. As they say, in fairness, that doesn't hit us quite so hard in the rural areas, but it certainly does in Cambridge and Peterborough. You can't just keep putting buses on and more resource on and more cost. It's just a downward spiral, frankly. It's just an ever decreasing circle.
And I think that if you add an extra bus, that doesn't actually speed up the journey.
No,
the extra bus. The extra bus has still got to get past the.
Arguably,
it just adds another load of overhead in a way.
Yeah, well, and it also adds to the congestion. I mean, only a tiny bit, but it does add to the congestion.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose the question is what can be done to get. I mean, if it's particularly the utility companies that are the problem. What can be done to get them to be honest, play ball? And is there anything that like local councils or the general public can do to do that?
David, the council officers do the best they can. What is good is we've now got good local councillors when these impacts are happening, getting upset and being very public in the press about how upset they are and the impact this is having on their services, so that hopefully these lovely utility companies might start, through care about their public image, to think, and all we want them to do, we know we can't get rid of 100% of disruption, we get that 1,000%. But to give you one example, there is a big housing development not far away from where I live, where they have all the relevant details of all the relevant bus companies and quite a few conversations to say, please talk to us to help us plan the impact it's going to have. And we only get to know what they're doing because I live in Teversham and I get things shoved through my front door, which I could then go and take in and give to the team. Now, that's pretty bad, that, when we have to rely on me getting things through my front door. And it's just about, So really, it's just really councillors, getting upset. I mean, Simon, any thoughts on anything further?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, it's certainly some as much collaboration as we possibly can. That's all we can really ask, and then we can hopefully try and put some, put a little bit, to it to bring everything smoothly to the party, as it were. That's all we really that's all we can ask for, to be perfectly honest with you. But just a bit of collaboration so we can make it work.
Two things. Are there council representatives on the bus alliance? Bus operators.
It's bus operators, Martin, but we're always more than welcome to talk to councillors. Yeah. In fact, we have issued recently to councillors an offer that for a coffee, all of our members, Victoria Stevenson's Jews, Delaney Bus, Fact, we welcome you to come in, have a coffee with us, and ask us any questions you've got, because I think part of the challenge is that there's a lot more we as bus operators want to be able to offer, because ultimately things have not really moved forward in our county since 2018. We want to be getting on with improvements now for the people of Cambridgeshire. I mean, one key we'll be listening hard to these. One key thing is, for example, an effective model for rural buses. We have something worked up. So really, one of the frustrations I think we've had is we haven't had much opportunities, operators, to put on the table everything we want to put on the table, so that we can get on with this, make this happen, make people feel improvements now. So really, the biggest thing, Martin, is just come and talk to us. We'd love to see you.
I mean, I have to say I'm not a councillor, but I get the point absolutely. I've not been elected for a long time. I was years ago. I was leader of county council for a little while, but I'm not a councillor. But it's important. But what I do, I work with developers, and do public relations and engagement. And one of the things I would say to you is, because we sometimes struggle to get bus operators to talk to us with what we do. So when we're planning new development, one of the great things to be able to do is sit down and talk early with a bus operator, when the time's right, to try and if we can do that early and have conversations, it helps you get your message across, and it helps us in terms of working with you to plan a service from a new site.
And Martin, we'd love that. But I will say though, Martin, we've been pioneering in Cambridgeshire a new approach to housing developments and ways forward, because the old traditional approach is, like for example, David, you've got your 2 going through there, how much to put another 2 on. And I hate that, because the people who then go in and buy those houses, how do you know the 2 is what they need, to be frank? Yeah. So what we prefer is a situation whereby in planning consents, it should be, how much is the cost of a PVR? Simon will have that information, I'll have that information, and write into the planning consent a pot of money, and then from day one, give people like myself and Simon access to people buying the houses to say to them, right, let me know what your actual travel needs are, and then you have a travel solution that may start with something like a demand responsive minibus, then go up to a full-size bus, because there's been some big housing developments. I'd point to Camborne being a prime example, where it was the old way of doing it, shove some bus tickets in the back of a housing brochure and hope for the best, and it just hasn't worked. So now in Camborne, we're saying make sure the transport solution is right for the people buying it.
So particularly for where I am in Huntingdon, that's actually a super important issue. We've got, Huntingdonshire District Council is doing its local plan update, and the call for sites has a lot of things around potentially around Huntingdon, and getting that public transport right is important. It's one of the things we put in our response to the bus franchising consultation. Is flexibility. That we feel that's going to be quite important, because we had a thinking, in terms of the town council, it's like, what are the journeys people are going to be taking? And it's like, well, we think there'll be some around Huntingdon, quite a lot into the town centre, some to Hinchingbrook. We reckon there'll be probably quite a lot of people wanting to go to Cambridge, quite a lot going to the station, quite a lot wanting to go to Peterborough, and then we realised actually we don't know. We can guess, but also it's likely to change over time. You know, and with, I think that's quite an important one. As the development comes in, you know, as those developments come on, the buses grow with the development. And I think that's the thing. There's something you mentioned. You mentioned earlier on PVR. PVR is peak vehicle requirement, isn't it?
Yes, sorry, I should have said, yeah.
That's right. You mentioned earlier on about solutions for rural routes, or for better serving rural areas. I would love to hear more about that, if that's possible.
Yeah, sure, David. There were two models developed. I used to work in the community transport sector for the Community Transport Association, and there was something called the Little Red Bus that operated on the Harrogate to Leeds corridor in the early 90s. And what it was a bus that went around all the rural areas, sweeping up all the customers, because in rural areas, passenger numbers are lower. And then it went on to the main Harrogate to Leeds route, and it waited until the big 36 came through and a one ticket transferred people. And then on the way back, people knew that bus would be waiting for them in that bus stop, because people talk an awful lot about rural mobility hubs and things like that. But unless you've got guaranteed interchange, people will not do it. But the other model is the Little White Bus, pioneered by actually a councillor, ex-North Yorkshire County Councillor John Blackie. And it was simple, because it was a minibus that does the same principle, but has a mixture of fixed journeys and on-request portions of journey. Where you go back to first principles, you simply have a driver with a mobile phone, because DRT is lovely and apps are lovely, but they're very expensive. And sadly, nationally, no DRT has ever been commercially sustainable. If you go to the Little White Bus model, you strip out a lot of the cost, and what you're doing is making sure you maximise resources. It's all tied up in a principle called total transport. And again, the paper was launched called One Transport Need, One Transport Solution for Cambridgeshire. And what that ultimately said was, take things back to the first principle. What are people's transport needs? So take Huntington, for example. What you would do, take a simple GIS map and say, right, people in Huntington, where do they work? Where do they go to school and college? Where do they do medical, etc.? Map that need. Then overlay the current transport network, supported buses, school buses, commercial buses, and non-emergency patient transport. And where you've got two services mirroring each other, ask yourself the question of why. Why can't you have everybody on the same vehicle? Then you home it down to one network of vehicles, and then you start what's commercial, what's supported, what's DRT, etc. Now, you may say it's impossible to do. Well, without being too immodest, a humble local government official in the East Riding of Yorkshire did exactly this in the early 2000s. East Riding of Yorkshire, not dissimilar in geography to Cambridgeshire, and I managed to get £3 million out of the cost of bus provision and still maintain the core network, because what we did was we focused in on what people's actual strategic transport needs were, not, let me have a bus so that I might decide to use it. No, let's focus resource on where people work, and it can and will work. And look, as operators through the CP Alliance, we can get on with this, particularly delivering for rural people. And that's one of our frustrations, the consultation of others. It will take several more years for things to start to, get where they need to be. We can be getting on with this now.
On DRT, can I just ask David, because I know the Combined Authority expanded some of the trials for demand responsive transport. So I was wondering your views, David and Simon, in terms of like how is that going? Because as you said, there are other models which are perhaps more viable. So I'm just wondering how it's going at the moment, and I guess what are the pros and cons of those trials.
And bearing in mind that I love the DRT, I love the Ting service.
Simon, what do you want to go first?
Okay, well, I lost the last 10 seconds of audio on that, so my apologies. But I think probably what I've gathered is with regard to the new DRT that's just about to come on stream. Alex, the only thing I would say is that's not actually started yet. Obviously you've got Team, which has been going for quite some time. David knows far more about that than I, because he was obviously running it for an awfully long time. Prior to the current operator. We're just about to launch with a tech partner, and we're going to be looking after the Fenland, which is only one bus, but we're going to be heading up to Chatteris on a daily basis, and we're going to be looking after DRT there. That will be a huge learning curve for us as a business, which is really why we wanted to be in contact with it, and we wanted to be doing it, because we see that DRT could have a place. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all. I'm not saying it's obviously it's utopia, but I think there is an opportunity for that being the place. But there is certainly, I mean, David and I sing from the same page as far as it's concerned. There is certainly an opportunity for smaller buses to do we kind of call it in our office, we call it the fluffy stuff, and all around the villages and all that, the little bits and pieces. Get the buses on the trunk road, which is where you want them to be. But there is definitely an overlay on education transport, particularly further education transport. I appreciate sticking a 4 or 5 year old onto a service bus and sending them off to school is perhaps not really the right route to go, and I'm not sure I'd want to be doing that with my youngsters when they were that age. But there is an element of secondary school without almost any shadow of a doubt as well. Having said that, I'm fairly confident that CPCA and CCC are looking at some of this. I believe there's a trial going ahead in another area of the county, but it is a solution that we've actually put forward to them in the past on a number of occasions, which has always been rebuffed and said, no, we're not doing that. But maybe it'll be something for the future. But ultimately, there's an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes, which the operators have got the angle on, because and that's because the drivers have got the angle on it. If you want to know what's going on out on the street, as it were, just ask the drivers. They know what's going on.
Can I just sort of a couple of things come to mind with this, but I'm going to bring in a question that we've had from somebody that links in with what you were talking about, David, which is this idea of mapping out where people work and basing things on there. And there's a couple of things. First of all, it does strike me, and I know we're going on to this later on, that sort of mapping and that sort of facilitation of a bus network is much easier done under franchising system. I mean, certainly my perspective, because under a franchising system, you could how you map and how you deliver. There's almost no whim of the operator there, if you know what I mean. And that's not criticism. It's how I see it. But the other thing is, you talked about places of work, but is that also true in relation to places of leisure as well? So things like leisure centres, but also things like cinemas, football clubs and stuff like that. So you're mapping around, when is it on a Saturday that people travel into Peterborough to go and watch Posh, and and can we tweak our provision to meet that?
First of all, I'd say one of our biggest challenges as bus operators is people have, in some cases, forgive me, a very old traditional view of a bus operator of, we just want to make money. That view amongst bus operators died a long time ago. We are very much about customer service. So would I shock you if I said, for example, that Stagecoach has just bought a whole pile of BT mobility data, which allows us to see what journeys people are actually making, so we can start to sense check our network to say, right, where are people going from and to? And sorry, Martin, it isn't true that it would only be done this type of work under a franchise approach. We're doing it already, because ultimately we can't provide the best possible service to the people of Cambridgeshire unless we make sure that our product, because a bus service, let's be frank, it's a product. It has to be a product that people desire. So if we're not making sure that we're serving the right place, we're not providing the service we need to do. And in terms of places of leisure, yes, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. But I think part of the problem, though, Martin, is just getting businesses to talk to us and tell us their shift times, schools even. I mean, most recently, we only just found out that a school on one of stage structures core routes has changed its start and finish times, but nobody told us. You know, the heart of the battle is people just presume as bus operators, we know this information, we don't. Data for us is absolute gold dust. So we would love people to talk to us and share it with us. And we'll still, no matter how buses are organised, get on with it now, because we want to make sure we're maximising the quality of service we provide. And we can only do that by doing this mapping now. So I'm already on with it.
So can I jump in there? Because using the BT data is really interesting. So this is similar to stuff. There's a journalist called James O'Malley who's looked at some of the work that's been done in London. It's slightly different on the, where there's Wi-Fi on the tube. You can use that not just to see the journeys people are making, but how they're making them, and the routes the routes that TfL thought people took across London aren't actually the routes that people always took, and that they looked into it anyway. It's what you can do with that is really interesting, and you can. That's really interesting. Can I give it a sort of and I'm we do appreciate you being on, and please do disagree with me, but just to push back a little bit, or not push back, but give it a different view. You've got the CPCA is looking more at buses, and we've got bus franchising, is being talked about. If not franchising, then enhanced partnership. There's been improvements on the buses recently, which a range of improvements, generally, which are great, but they seem to have come after the spectre of franchising has been talked about. It is, I suppose the question is, why not sooner? I mean, the other one is it's like there's talk about cross ticketing and so on. Is that, I think you probably get where I'm going with it, but you're going on, you're doing with the work, but it's like, well, is that because there's the spur of franchising, or am I being unfair?
No, you're not being unfair, David. You're playing devil's advocate, which is absolutely fine, and you're very welcome to do so. That's kind of what we're here for. The reason that has come on is obviously due to the mayoral precept. There's been a launch of obviously the mayoral precept earlier in the year. That money has been ring-fenced for bus transport. So effectively, there's been some funding available for that, in actual fact, to be able to launch these new services, of which have been, some have been launched, some are still to be launched. I know there's some of our colleagues in other parts of the county are about to launch theirs. We've done all of ours now, as well as the DRT that Alex mentioned a few moments ago. That's obviously as part of that financing as well. So there will be 4 areas of DRT throughout the county, as opposed to just the one experimental one in the I think it's sort of southwest. But that's actually why that obviously has come about, because there's been some funding available. Now, it's interesting we talk about the what's available from the operator point of view, and the services that we put on. I can only really speak on behalf of those from a coalface point of view, but effectively we built that network. That network wasn't built by the council. It wasn't built by a consultant. In actual fact, we talk about getting to work. The initial conversations we had with the council with regard to new timetables actually cut some of the work contracts that we were doing, and we had data on to say that those tickets that we were selling 20, 21, 22 tickets a day out of Chatteris to Huntingdon at 6:55, 5 minutes to 7, and they actually cut that service. So we rebuilt that, we put that back together, and as you were saying earlier, the 305 and 303 is working particularly well, and we're really rather proud of that. So these opportunities can come about from the operator, because the operator knows what's going on in obviously at the coalface, not necessarily somebody, forgive me, but not necessarily somebody obviously that's coming at it from a different direction, and certainly franchise is not the utopia on this in the slightest.
Can I just bring up a question on this? Sorry, David, from Simon, just to get some like audience questions, just related to this. So Simon on Twitter or X is asking, what quick wins can the bus operators provide directly to passengers in the region without even needing the CPCA, the county council, councillors, government, or the third parties? So is there something that we can do, the bus operators could do without needing, any of those related bodies? Or is it the case of like, well, we need to work together and we need to have the structure of the mayor to deliver?
Yeah, sure. It has to be collaboration, doesn't it? It has to be collaboration. If we all work together, we can put an amazing system. We can, we can carry on. We can carry on putting these programs together, which we've done, and we've proved that we can do, and we're very capable of doing. That was a collaboration that we pulled together. Obviously, clearly, it couldn't happen without the funding in place, and I'll make no bones about that. I don't hide behind that fact at all. But it's about working together.
But I would also add, though, Alex, that there are a number of things we have done which haven't involved funding. I mean, we do welcome, as Simon said, the funding for the enhanced networks, which we've also taken part of as well. And on DRTs, Alex, I would say that I think there's a room for a mixture of different models. I think there's room for DRT and the rural shopper type approach. But I would highlight, for example, and again, David, going back to the earlier point about franchising, yeah, you're playing devil's advocate, as Simon said. But going back to that bit about we want to try and get on with things now, Simon at Juice Coaches actually operates our 904 service, which may look and smell like a stagecoach service, but Simon runs it for us. And that works extremely well, really, really well. And we've already started talking, to Simon about what more Juice could do for us. And also other bus operators, so much so that one of my other members, A to B, in Bedford, is already operating a service for us. So really, this desire to get on with things has meant that we have started thinking outside the box, trying new services. The 8A between Orchard Park and the city, we put that on. It's not yet making money, but it's carrying a really solid passenger base of people through there. On the rurals, we tried the S service from Fenstanton. We're talking to them about another model that might work slightly better. So really, these are things that we want to do to better serve people. Really, it's, in our minds, it's not about franchising or EP when we do them. It's about getting people back onto bus. Because whatever we do, we've all got to get people back onto bus.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I just wanted to pick. It was something on Simon. You mentioned the 303, 305 service. I just wanted to pick up on it, much of the thing to because you mentioned, David, you mentioned the little white bus and so on, and the little red bus. The 30, I'm going to get the numbers. The bus that goes to Chatteris meets up with the Ely Zipper, and so if you get that bus, there will be the bus to Ely waiting for you. And then coming back, that you can get the bus, and then the bus will be waiting for you.
Yeah,
that I think that makes a huge difference. Like psychologically, it's like that's really good. Sorry, I'm a big fan of it because having had to get to Ely before and do this sort of strange loop round to get there, that's actually a really valuable thing. Okay, I don't know how many people are going from Huntingdon to Ely by bus, but from the places like closer to Chatteris and so on, there'll be a lot of people wanting to make that connection.
The thing about it is, bus, I mean, looking at it slightly differently, I suppose. The routes out there have to run. It just makes sense to link them all together. Yeah, it's not brain surgery, is it? It just makes sense to link them all together, which is it's the simplest thing in the world. But I would reiterate that I mean, although okay, I'm blowing my own trumpet over that, we did that.
Yeah, no,
and my point being is that the operators, as David just mentioned a few moments ago, it's a very different arena now. It's a very, very, very different landscape. Call it what you like. It's not like I suppose it was, even 5 to 10 years ago. I think it's fair to say. Operators look at things very differently. There's a lot more collaboration in work. We do compete, and as David mentioned right at the beginning, the top of program, effectively, you know, we do compete really hard, but we can still work together and we can still get on with it. And it's just that collaboration of pulling stuff together.
Can I just say that the tone of this conversation is quite reassuring to me in that respect, because when I was a councillor, when I was leader of the county council and dealing with, I have to say at that time, David, stagecoach, but I found it really painful. And, you know, that's 10 years ago. And the tone of what I'm seeing and hearing here now is very, very different. And that is sort of quite reassuring. But I just want to go back, though, because I hear what you say about collaboration and about competition. If you go back to 2011, and I think it was called the Competition Commission then, or whatever it was called, the report that was done into the bus industry, I look at that, and I still don't think the bus industry has changed significantly. I still see a bus industry that is primarily dominated and has basically regional or sub-regional monopolies, which is the thing that it reported on. And for me, one of the reasons for going to, and I say that this is the conservative in me coming out, one of the reasons for wanting to do franchising is actually to try and drive and use it as a facilitator to get more competition into the bus industry and into the bus system.
I don't mean to be rude, Martin, and I'm not saying it wouldn't bring competition into it. I fear it won't, though. And I'll give you a little example. In Manchester, I appreciate it's a city. It's not the same as it is here in the rural areas. That I understand. How many independents are there now in Manchester since franchising?
I don't know.
None. They're all gone. They've been put, basically the smaller independents have gone in Manchester. There are none because the big boys have come in and they've swept through the whole place.
And Martin, can I just say that our history is our history. The fact that when deregulation first happened, the whole premise of that was supposed to be about massive increased competition, and it survived about maybe 4, maybe 5 years, because unfortunately what hadn't been thought through was the economics of how costly it is to run buses. So those early innovators soon ran out of cash. And yes, there is this argument that's put forward of franchising will bring lots of people in to compete for the franchises. And as Simon's just said, evidence elsewhere would suggest otherwise. Surely the better way is to get on now with collaboration. And in terms of out-of-the-box thinking, I mean, who would have, for example, thought years ago that you'd hear Stagecoach getting another operator to run a service for it, because we recognise that with the quality Simon provides through Drew's coaches and the cost base, and the key one is the cost base, that we can make a key connection Huntingdon to Peterborough work by working with other partners. We acknowledge that by working together as all big 7 operators, we can compete, but we can also make sure that through all 7 of us being there, we can provide the best possible service. And that's what it's about, because ultimately we're now very sensible businesses. Through maximising customer service and making sure that the bus service is the right bus service that people need, we then have a business. It's not about just whack it on the fair. I mean, there are the dinosaurs of the industry, Martin, whose philosophy was whack it on the fairs, whack it on the fairs. They're all dead now, thank God, Martin. And you've got more forward-thinking people like Simon, myself, Darren, and others who actually think, well, no, it's about customer service.
But also, do be mindful that we are leading in our area. The operator we signed it with Stagecoach. The first operator partnership in the country. Okay, so we're leading. Cambridgeshire is leading the area here, not hanging on at the coattails of anybody else. And we're doing something which is pretty groundbreaking in actual fact, in pulling together the resource and the network together as a group of people. And yeah, you're probably right, Martin. Yes, in years gone by, that was how it was. And as David has just said, that's history. We can't change that. We can't go. There's no point in harping on about that. We need to look to the future.
Yeah, and I would argue, as something that I say quite a lot about Cambridgeshire, as Cambridgeshire as a county, the very nature of what Cambridgeshire is, with the Cambridge economy at the heart of it, we should be 100% the most innovative county in the world, in the country. And we're still not, but at least we can see it moving forward with buses. I mean, I still have a view that franchising can help this and facilitate it, but it's nice to see and have a conversation about how bus companies are working together. It really is quite reassuring for me.
Can I ask a question about that? So we've talked a lot about the mayoral bus precept, Chair, and how it's enabling a lot of innovation in the industry. But my recollection of the origins of that bus precept was because a lot of services were scrapped without much consultation, and that's why Nick Johnson's story of why he had to put the mayoral precept in place. And it's kind of difficult for me as a rural councillor standing up in front of communities and saying, you're going to have to pay £36 a year for better bus services when you don't get a bus service. So will your body help improve that communication? Because I think it felt at the time that was a bit of a shock announcement that lots of routes like the 66 was dumped by Stagecoach, picked up by Whippet, in a bit of a rush. They had to buy lots of old buses to do it and damage their service reliability. So will your organisation help with those communications and moving forward have better communications with the mayoral authority so that we know, ahead of time that these things are going to happen? Because I understand there's commercial realities to running bus companies and sometimes you have to scrap routes, but I don't think that, from my point of view, the communication on that was pretty poor.
And obviously that was a very painful time, October 22. I would say, though, that discussion about the challenges that we were facing had started many, many, many months before then, and lots of different options were worked through to try and avoid the situation we were in. Sadly, none of them came to fruition. And look, ultimately, moving forward, what we've done is reinvest routes, admittedly, not so many in the rural areas, but in other areas, and managed to grow patronage. In terms of communication, though, going back to history, the regulations in which we operate under are that we have to communicate with the transport body for buses, which is the CPCA. Now, one of the things that came out of that was that obviously we then have to rely upon good communication flows of what we're talking about, filtering down to districts, towns and parishes. So to try and make sure all those communication flows are happening, not only through the CP Bus Alliance do we talk to town, parish and district councils, but I myself personally take great delight in going to town, parish, district councils, having regular meetings with key district councillors so they're fully briefed on exactly what's going on so that we can avoid a situation. And I'll give you a prime example. When we had to reduce down the service on the 9s, Littleport Parish Council came along and tore me and my colleague, the ops director, a new one because it was absolute shock to them. And we apologised to them for that, because we thought some communication had been happening. It hadn't, unfortunately. So now we make sure that even more, we proactively as bus operators go out and do that communication ourselves alongside colleagues. And I know the CPCA team now do a lot of discussion with town, parish, and the success of that type of thing. I would point to Wittering, north of Peterborough, where Andrew and the CPCA team have worked brilliantly with a brilliant bus committee of 4 local parishes, Wittering, Caister and Aylesworth, the RF is the 4th one, found a bus service, designed it, and the parishes themselves, through Facebook and others, are promoting that service. And the passenger growth on there is remarkable for a deeply rural bus service. So it goes back to that point about collaboration, learning lessons from the past and making sure that the communication going forward, which I agree with you wholeheartedly, happens across all areas.
Can I just pick up on that a little bit, because it's really important, and I know a little bit about that. I've watched the Peterborough City Council meetings where they've had local residents come in and push for a Wittering bus service, and it's great that it's happening. It's really good. And one of the big improvements we've had, I live in Whittlesea, one of the big improvements we've had recently in Whittlesea is the move towards once again to an evening bus service. And it's something that Whittlesea residents have been screaming out for a long time, and it is useful because it means that Whittlesea residents can access the nighttime economy in Peterborough. It means I can go for a drink, basically.
Let's be honest, isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah,
Martin?
absolutely. But the issue for me about that service, I think councillors have tried to promote it and push it, and Facebook has done it to a certain extent, but Facebook only does anything so well, because as soon as you promote something on Facebook, you get the bottom of Facebook basically putting it down and everything else. But there doesn't seem to be anything in and around Whittlesea to say, if you want to go to Peterborough, you can and access the nighttime economy, you can do so now without having to rely on 14 quid plus for a taxi. And this is one of the criticisms I used to make about Stagecoach, is that there never seems to be anything that goes through people's door to actually promote changes and increases in services. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but
Martin, we haven't done it yet in Whittlesea, but one of the things I pioneered since arriving in Stagecoach 3 years ago is Royal Mail door drops, because yes, there are 3,500 bus stops across the county. Cambridge is fairly unusual in that normally the local authority provides the information, and in our area we are talking to the CPC about that and how that can happen. But for me, once you get to the bus stop, you've lost the argument, because people aren't going to go to a bus stop to work out what time the bus is coming, etc. You need something on the mat, and certainly in Peterborough, we've actually done some Royal Mail door drops of some leaflets that are very lurid in colour, very bright. We used bright orange in Peterborough the last time, and the idea is when it hits the mat, curiosity, you pick it up, and it provides a QR link to all the information about the service. So certainly I'll talk to my marketing colleagues and see what we can potentially do in Whittlesea, because that for me is the future. And we're even trying to have and we try to work it up in Cambridgeshire, a paid for by advertising timetable book that was literally on your mat, because people talk a lot about bus timetables and things like that. If you have to go and find where to pick up a paper bus timetable, you're not going to do it. It's a bus timetable on your mat. And you know that could work, because in the East Riding of Yorkshire, we had that for a lot of years.
I think that's a really. I think there's a really important point there. It's not just about making it easy. It's not. Look, make my life easier as a regular bus transport. Person who uses the bus a lot. That's great. It's about getting new people onto the bus.
Definitely.
It's that making it easy. So I'm afraid, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to disappear in just a moment. But there's somebody said there about the bus infrastructure, about the bus stops and the bus stands. My personal view, for various reasons, is that the CPCA should just do them. I think at the moment we've got this crazy patchwork. There are some bus stops not far from where I'm sitting, where the stand or the pole is owned by the district council. The flags, I think, were put in by your team, David, by Stagecoach, and we don't know who owns the land it's on.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you've got this crazy thing where, in some places you've got the parish council, the district council, the county council, and the combined authority having responsibility for what, at the end of the day, is a piece of scaffold pushed in the ground. If you're Mr. and Mrs. John Q taxpayer, or Mr. and Mr. or Mrs. and Mrs. or Mooks and Mooks, you don't want to be working out. You just want to call a number and say, someone's banged into my bus stop. And this one I feel quite strongly is that you just want one organisation, so, who is that infrastructure, you can call up and say, come and fix my bus stop. and not doing this ridiculous ring around the houses. Yeah.
Yes, it's really frustrating from a resident perspective as well, but even like for councillors, because like you don't know like how to report. Like we often get, you know, emails saying like, well, this bus stop has been vandalized, or who to report to, or like, you know, the glass is broken, and you have as a councillor to identify like who is responsible in the first place. And often like you do, but you know, from a resident perspective, they won't go through the same amount of time required to get the bottom of this. But yeah, I also have to leave soon, unfortunately. I'm going actually to a meeting at CRC, and I want to end with a question around actually the Tiger bus pass, because what I have seen on the CRC route where I'm going in half an hour's time is actually like, you know, potentially increased use of the service, especially like on the college route. So I was going to ask David and Simon, how did the Tiger bus pass work, and is there a case for increased frequency, or is increased frequency not the answer on those routes such as the busway, which are quite busy, let's say at this time of the morning on those college routes in particular?
Simon, do you want to go first from your perspective?
We have seen a really good uptake in the Tiger. I haven't got the data in front of me, to be honest with you, Alex. If you particularly want it, I can get it for you. I'm not sure that at the moment we've seen where we need to actually put on extra resource for it. And certainly there's been no conversation with our ops team who look after this, certainly not with myself purely on that at these certain busier times of the day. But I can say to you, it seems to have been well received, and it seems to be being used, and patronage on certainly on our in the Huntingdon area as lifted, you know, purely just off the back of the youngsters using the bus. So it's been positive, but I'm not sure that we need to put an extra resource right now. It'd be a nice problem to have, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to hear, and I will see in like just a few minutes how it is at the moment. But it's not a piece of feedback we, I think, as councillors in this area, received quite a bit in terms of like especially the busway, especially the part from St. Ives to Cambridge, and how it's very good that actually is well used, and like what can we do to?
Well, I think I've been told that in the evenings coming back, sometimes there's a bit of a queue at CRC in Cambridge to get on the bus to come back. That's a nice problem to have.
Alex, I just quickly say, to build on what Simon said, it's hard for us to ultimately see, because yes, we sold just over 147,000 Tiger bus tickets, the last data that I had, but equally we are well over 60% down on annual student bus pass sales as well. So difficult to see, as Simon said. It's been a good thing, definitely. Again, more young people on the bus. In terms of capacity challenges, you know, we have seen a large uptake of students this year, definitely without a shadow of a doubt. Certainly, for example, on Mondays, we've had anything up to a 58% increase in passengers per trip using the busway on a Monday between 8 and 9. So really at the moment, Alex, we're just building the data, but certainly the Mayor's initiative was a good one. Want to support him in it, and we'll just see how it goes.
I'm really sorry. I am going to have to step away. I do apologise. David and Simon, thank you so much for coming on.
Same here. Well, thank you so much, and it's good to have some positive news as well. I think there are a lot more questions around, like, let's say the government increase in the bus cap, but I'll leave Martin and Stephen to perhaps discuss that one. But thank you so much both, and I'm going to CRC to see how the situation is this morning.
Have a nice trip.
I mean, that bus cap is from my perspective, is quite important, because we're in quite an exciting place in Cambridgeshire at the moment, which is that for the first time in a generation, we're able to look at a place where we can see bus provision actually increasing, and bus supply increasing, and that £3 thing comes at a difficult time, and I understand there's conversations about how we can keep it at £2. But do you think that is going to have an impact if it does go up to 3?
Well, inevitably, Martin, as you know, with your background, there is elasticity of demand, and whenever there's a price change, people react to that. Unfortunately, there is no national level modelling of what impact that's going to have. Normally in Cambridgeshire, you work on between 1% and 3% price elasticity of demand. When there's, it goes from 2 to 3, who knows whether it might be more than that? None of us really 100% know. And obviously, just like every other business in the country, the government's increase in the cost of national insurance contributions will be something we have to find a way of covering that cost. So at the moment, obviously we hopefully don't want to see some of the demand burn off, because it's been great having more people on buses. So what we're all doing is working very, very hard to give people other incentives to want to stay with us. For example, doing some very innovative work with the NHS trusts at the moment to try and ensure that the price of a day ticket is less than a patient park, to hopefully encourage people not to get their cars out to go to hospital. So really, again, it's just all that thinking outside the box to try and keep buses attractive. I mean, Simon, from your perspective?
It remains to be seen, doesn't it? As you say, it's bound to have an impact somewhere along the line, because all these things they always do. We don't have any data to go on for whether in other areas, but it remains to be seen for when it actually arrives. It's early January, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. It's bound to have an impact on some people. However, that you still have. There's still people that you catch up with, and they say, "Oh, I go on the bus. It only costs me a couple of quid, and I can go and have a drink, and I can do what I want, and all that sort of, particularly from the social aspect point of view." Is that going to make any difference? Is another pound going to make a difference to some people? No, it won't make a difference at all. They'll still use it, and it'll still be excellent value for money for them. But there's going to be somebody out there that feels the pinch over it if they're putting their hand in their pocket for another tenner a week for their transport.
From my perspective, there's two sides to it. The first one is, it's the people that are accessing work by bus at the moment, where the cost of your daily commute effectively is going to go up from £4 to £6. That's where I think it's difficult. But there's another part of that, which is that £3, if it did go up to £3, and if it does, is still in a lot of cases cheaper than it was before the £2 levy was implemented, and we have to understand that. And again, the government decision, if you can't get under the rationale for it, which is that actually, although it has benefited people, the rationale is it didn't quite have the impact and the increase in patronage that government expected and predicted, and that's why it went up to £3. That's my understanding of it.
Can you actually measure that, chaps? Because when it was implemented, it was straight after COVID, wasn't it? When bus services were disrupted anyway. Do you actually have any idea what the impact of the £2 fare was, or is it too difficult to say because it was at a difficult time for the industry?
Again, so I think you've answered your own question to some extent. That we were coming out of COVID, so it's how do you disseminate what £2 done from people coming back as more and more officers are coming back. I mean, certainly, yes, has there been growth as a result of it? Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. But how much of that was just people coming back or not? No one will ever know 100% for sure. I mean, certainly, all I can say is in the routes that we reinvested in after October 22, they were showing single-digit passenger growth before £2 fare, and that went to double-digit and higher once £2 came in. So, has there been growth overall? Yes. And it's just about how we maintain that trajectory. But what we are now starting to do, those operators, is really planning for potentially the end of £3, because the thing that worries us to our absolute core is if the government turn off the funding and say, right, no, that's it, you've had it, and then people go back to the true fare, because at the end of the day, this is not about profit, this is about paying our bills. The true fare is a lot higher than that. What we don't want is all demand to burn off completely at that point. So that's about making sure our multi-journey tickets, people are aware of them, how affordable they are, and doing promotions to encourage people to sort of try and go more to multi-journey, so that people don't have that price shot. And Martin, you were saying about commuting to work, for example. We've got multi-journey tickets where it's less than £3 a day by buying the multi-journey ticket. So we can start to get people to sort of understand those. Then hopefully that price elasticity demand, when it does kick off, is not as bad as an industry we're worried it could be.
Can I just, it's another difficult question. Sorry, I feel I've done a lot of these today, and I am quite positive about where buses are going in Cambridgeshire. But I watched the Combined Authority Board meeting on Wednesday, and there was a comment in the middle of that, and it stood out because I think I was watching that and mindful of doing this today. but the combined authority, there was a comment made that there's some strategic data that the bus companies won't provide the combined authority. And I'm just wondering what your data sharing is like. And I wanted to dig into that a bit more before today, and I just couldn't. But is that something you're aware of? Or, I mean, I'll let you comment.
I mean, Simon, from your perspective, I'll definitely have some thoughts on that.
Everything is sent on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I have no issue with that. Everything is sent on a monthly basis. All their ticket data is all sent on a monthly basis. I don't know of anything that we are not sharing. And I have to say, I find that a bit disappointing, David, don't you?
Yeah, me too.
Particularly if it's a public meeting. If it's a public meeting and they're actually accusing us of withholding information, and I'm not aware
it wasn't meant in any. I don't think it was meant in any derogatory way.
I don't suppose it was. I don't suppose it was, Martin. I don't suppose it was at all. But it's still a bit disappointing, nevertheless.
It was just. It was more. It probably stood out to me because I was watching the meeting and at the same time sort of mindful about this conversation today, and I suspect it passed a lot of people by, but I'll dig into that a little bit more.
Please, Martin, because again, like Simon, we provide all the data on a monthly basis, and also we're asked for some more sensitive data, and we have an NDA with the Cambridgeshire Peterborough Combined Authority, which allows them to have that data, because obviously with the really commercially sensitive stuff, no disrespect to fellow brother and sister operators, that's commercially sensitive, but we still have an NDA in place to allow them to see that. So I'd be really interested myself as to what data we haven't shared with them, because, you know, for us, whatever data helps people to understand. I mean, Martin, Darren and I have even gone to the extreme of sharing with CPCA details of all the current loss-making services that we still have, but we continue to maintain to ensure that people at Cambridgeshire have a service. So, you know, in terms of what data people need, we share it.
Yeah. So my understanding, I've just had a message from somebody very important. It's to do with the sharing of data on commercial routes. Is what it's to do with. I'll do a bit more digging outside the meeting anyway. Can I be a bit more positive, because one of the things I talk a lot about Cambridgeshire as an innovative county, and I personally think if you can't innovate in Cambridgeshire, there's no point. And I look at things like driverless buses as an example. You know, the guided bus, which I was involved in the implementation and delivery of that project, which was an absolute nightmare. And since has been a fantastic success. I know there's been issues in and around it, but I look at that and say, would we do that again? Absolutely not, because from my perspective, you know, nowadays, because of the way buses are going, you could effectively put down tarmac and deliver the same result in a few years' time. And what I'm interested in is how innovation and technology is going to change the way buses operate in the next sort of 10 years or so, because as Cambridgeshire plans and eventually tries to find a way to deal with its congestion problems, that innovation and delivering things in a new way through buses, or, you know, an equivalent of buses, has to be part of the picture.
Simon, do you want to go first on that one?
Yeah, yes, of course it does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then of course there's a plethora of new innovation that's coming, obviously heading our way. Whether that be as far afield as driverless. I mean, of course, we all know that there are driverless vehicles now being trialled and obviously being commercially used and operated in other parts of the world. Whether it goes that way or whether there's other elements of technology which people wish to use, then, but yes, certainly. And we're a fairly innovative lot. I mean, we're very happy to trial anything. And I know Stagecoach have got various different bits and pieces on the go and coming up fairly soon. I don't know what they can share. I'm not quite sure, but David will share what he can. Yeah. And of course, Stagecoach have been very pro north of the border in their driverless vehicle trials there as well. So yeah, there's plenty to be going for. That this arena is vast and it's gaining traction at an incredible rate. And certainly, you know, we would love to be at the forefront of that. You're absolutely right. Cambridge, you know, should be at the forefront of that, and we should be doing anything we possibly can.
definitely. I mean, I'd say, Martin, obviously, autonomous vehicles, we're proud to be part of Cambridge Connector and that particular project. The only thing I would say with technology, though, is that people got to be mindful about the commerciality of driverless buses. That's a long way away. And it did definitely worry me that in Huntingdonshire, there was discussions with a developer who had, had the rose-tinted spectacles given to them about how, driverless pods, for example, could be brilliant. But I was the one to.
I'm not going to mention it, but
yeah. But I would, but really, what I was trying to say very politely, and I hope I didn't offend him, was that, but given how expensive that technology is, you'd have to end up charging something ridiculous like 40, 50, 60 pound a seat to cover its costs. So without an incredibly large pot of money, now if people have got, Martin, a very incredibly large pot of money, any bus operator will run them for them. So I think what you do is you do the learnings, and certainly on the Connector project, I feel I'm useful because I'm the one saying, originally that was going to be Black London FX4 taxis because the technology partner thought a individualised experience would be a good thing. As I pointed out, individualised journey experiences are lovely, but if you have to pay £60 a seat, you're never going to do it. So actually do the trial on buses. So that's why we're now doing the trial on buses, because that brings down the cost of provision. Because when people talk about technology, Martin, yeah, Simon says, of course, we all want to be all over that, but you've got to have some cold, hard economics and think about the cost of providing that, howsoever and whosoever does it, so it's sustainable. So obviously we have the CAV4 project, as Simon said, over in Edinburgh. That's great. But can I say though, Martin, the one thing that could be done in our brilliant, innovative county that would do more for buses than autonomous buses ever will do, and that is some technology to bring down the cost of batteries in EV buses. Because the problem is, with EV buses, they're £500,000 each. And really, if somebody could do something to bring down the core cost of batteries or some end of life for batteries, so that actually you could have EV buses much cheaper, then that would do more for buses than autonomous buses in the next 5 to 10 years will ever do, frankly.
So the challenge I put in a little bit, and part of that is this is a challenge for the public sector as well. When you start talking about things that are £40, £60 a head, part of the reason for that is you're paying for the innovation. And we know this from history. Anybody that bought a VHS player years and years ago, and with the first VHS players, I think even then you were talking about £400, £500. You get one for a tenner now. And we know that similar has happened with wind energy and stuff like that. What it needs is the subsidy to enable those technologies to come to fruition, and come to maturity. That's what I would argue. But I think the electric buses, I absolutely agree. And I know battery technology is emerging all the time and evolving all the time. I think the Chinese have developed sodium batteries, haven't they, that they're working on with, and they're putting into cars now. So it is an evolving market. And my guess is the cost of batteries is going to come down considerably. But as I say, we're not looking at that now. And the buses you're operating are in the now, aren't they?
Definitely. So really, that would be good to bring that on batteries, but also technology regarding travel information. I mean, again, I was proud to be part of the Total Transport Initiative that happened between 2014 and 17. And obviously, when you were Cambridgeshire Council leader, Martin, you had a scheme in Cambridgeshire for total transport. And the saddening thing is that as part of the northern group of big winning councils, we developed a journey inquiry mechanism, which literally took your journey inquiry, asked you was it a school journey, and then automatically ported you to the local authority home to school transport system. And even the spec would print a bus pass off the back of that, or if it was a rail journey, took you straight to rail, etc. That specification was written the front and the back end by the southern group, and that wasn't taken forward by that then government. So technology to make information easier, I think, would be another way to make buses sing, because if you have to really think about or challenge how you get the information, it's going to be hard. Also, BODS was brilliant in theory, But I've got a problem in Cambridgeshire in that if people come to our app and our website, the bus information is always tip-top, spot on. But I've had a couple of cases in the busway in Huntingdonshire, for example, where customers have gone to somebody else's information where they haven't uploaded our timetable changes promptly, missed their bus, and I've had to politely say, I'm really sorry, but that particular app is obviously not uploaded our latest timetable thing that we've provided to them.
I think this is a good point, because one of the things I struggle with in Cambridgeshire, I don't see an authoritative app that I can turn to and I do end up sometimes flitting about a little bit to find bus tables. I quite like travelling by bus, and because it means I can go to places like St Neots and have a beer with Stephen. And I don't think there's some of it there, but there's nothing like I've seen elsewhere. And on a much smaller scale, as an example, I remember going to Guernsey, and the bus app they got on Guernsey, and I realised Guernsey's a tiny place and it's a lot easier, but it was fantastic. And I was able to sit there and watch on a map and watch a bus on its route to us.
Definitely. And Martin, Stagecoach is already working on multi-operator and multi-modality for our app. That's in testing at the moment, because that is the future. It's got to be about giving people one source of information. As I say, I can't give any timescales for it yet because it's still in testing. But, for example, through my work on bus rail integration, I've been pushing very hard indeed, through the Alliance and through Stagecoach, that if you step off a train, as soon as you come through the barriers, in your face should be the buses are over here. This is how you get the times for them. And thanks to that hard work, Greater Anglia are starting to move on that. But I was asked as part of that National Rail Inquiry Service, could we put buses on there? And the senior person within a key government department was quite shocked when I said that could be turned on tomorrow, because through BODs we've been providing that data free of charge. And all it needs is the rail delivery group to actually change the functionality of National Rail Inquiry Service to do that. Or, given that Travelline is already doing bus and rail, ask the question, do you really need NRES anymore? Why not use Travelline instead? And also, although we haven't shouted about it yet, but we're about to, Plus Bus. Very proud that Cambridgeshire is the 7th bestseller in Britain, and we are one of the 6 national trials of electronic Plus Bus, and those sales are going well. We're just about to do a sort of early 2020, late 24, early 25 push on that.
So this bus service, and sorry, I'm just picking up on this bus service integration and with trains. I'm just sitting at, one of the projects we've got coming forward in Cambridgeshire at the moment is the station quarter in Peterborough. And obviously one of the things with that is what I hope will happen from that is it will tie in the bus station in Peterborough closer and better with the railway station. And I just wonder if that's an opportunity.
Martin, without a shadow of doubt. In fact, Martin, if offline you could help me to get talking to the right person about that. I've been trying unsuccessfully for the last 6 months to find out who I need to talk to about that very project, because that's exactly what I'd love to do, because ultimately up in Queensgate, there's ourselves, Vectori, Delaney Bus up there, and the fact that you come out of Peterborough Station and you have to wonder where Queensgate is. In fact, so much so, Martin, that I've just re-pushed our 6s through the front of the station. But one of the biggest things, Martin, needs to be tackled there is congestion with the cars and the taxis, because I'm now providing a really good link. Stagecoach providing a very good link from the Hamptons through the forecourt there, but the buses are getting jammed up by the fact they just can't get through because of inconsiderately parked taxis and others. So whatever's happening with the station quarter, it's got to think about through flows to get people through there. But yeah, would love to talk to the right person about that one, Martin, because that's a very exciting project.
Cool. You're muted, Stephen.
going to say, I think we're at nearly an hour and 15 minutes, and I think we should give these chaps a break. So thank you very, very much for coming on and always being so open and honest as always. It's always a very robust conversation, and we're very pleased with the level of communication we're getting from you guys as well. So, and of course, you're always welcome to come up on the future again.
Am I allowed to say, you gathered from some of the things I said earlier on, I've had some quite difficult conversations in the past. I think this is probably the best conversation I've had. I really do appreciate both of you coming on and taking part today. It's been really, really good.
And Simon, so Simon, I've been to Stagecoach, I've been to Whipper. I need to come and have a coffee with you sometime as well.
Listen, you're very, very welcome anytime. We're just here in Little Somersham on the outskirts of our village. The road says it's closed at the minute, but it's not. It's still open, I promise you. You can get to us, I assure you. No, listen, anybody's very welcome anytime. Do just give us a shout, make sure we're here. That's the only thing I would say.
I'll let you know.
I'm around most of the time, but I do spend a bit of time off site. So yeah, that's the only thing I would sort of just drop me a line. We'll set a date up. You'll be very welcome, Stephen. And Martin also, and David, although he's now not online, of course. But anytime.
And could just say one last thing, please, Stephen, to your listeners, and that is, please, have your say in the consultation. It closes next Wednesday, so for those who haven't had their say, please do so. It's absolutely vital.
Yeah, we'll repackage this, and put it out on social media with that exact comment as well. So thank you very much, guys. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Cheers. Bye.